Are Democrats being hypocritical here now on the verge of a shutdown?
Not at all. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And we've indicated that we will sit down with anyone, anytime, any place to try to find a path forward in terms of reaching a bipartisan spending agreement that avoids a government shutdown, meets the needs of the American people, and deals with the painful Republican health care crisis that is devastating people all across America. Republicans have basically demonstrated zero interest in trying to work out any differences from a policy perspective that we may have, because at the end of the day, they want to shut the government down, as they've done repeatedly over the last several decades.
Well, let me ask you about that, because House Speaker Mike Johnson, your colleague on the other side of the aisle, he just spoke with Caitlin Collins, and he says that really what they're asking for is time. Listen.
Chuck Schumer has made the decision unilaterally, he's the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, to keep the government shut down for his own personal reasons. It is extremely selfish. We didn't put partisan provisions in the CR. We could have. I could have loaded that up with all of our partisan policy preferences, but I didn't, because we're operating in good faith. The reason we need, again, just the short-term extension to November 21st is to allow the appropriators to do their job. They need more time to do it in a bipartisan fashion, by the way. They agreed, Republicans and Democrats agreed, November 21st would be the appropriate date to extend it. That's all we're asking for is time.
So I want to get your reaction to that, but also, I mean, from your perspective, have you heard any concrete assurances from Speaker Johnson that your policy concerns might be addressed if they are given more time?
Not at all. And what we've seen with respect to Republicans over the last 15 years is a consistent effort to try to blow up the Affordable Care Act and hurt millions of Americans who rely upon that enlightened piece of legislation in order to provide health care for themselves and for their families. Over the next few days, more than 20 million Americans are going to experience notices that will indicate that their premiums, copays, and deductibles are about to skyrocket, in some instances by thousands of dollars a year. People are going to face medical bankruptcy. People will be unable to provide health care for themselves and for their families. And all of this is on top of the fact that Republicans passed their one big ugly bill, which is now law, including the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health clinics all across America are closing, and they're triggering a possible $536 billion cut to Medicare at the end of the year because of that one big ugly bill, if Congress does not act.
So
this is an extraordinary assault on the health care of the American people.
And we're simply saying
this has to be dealt with, and dealt with now.
Yeah, but what is the exit strategy
here
from a shutdown? Because once the government is shut down, which it will be in 2 hours, how do you get out of this? There's one Democrat who told CNN there is no way to play this shutdown game and win. And Democrats know that because Republicans, for the last several shutdowns, have been the ones playing this game. So how are you going to get out of it if we are in a shutdown?
Again, correct me if I'm wrong in terms of the Republican perspective, but Republicans have been lecturing America all year that they control the government and that they're jamming their policy preferences down the throats of the American people. So how is it the case that at this particular moment in time, they're suddenly at the mercy of Democrats who are in the minority in the House or in the Senate, when Donald Trump has consistently behaving like he's all powerful, including in the things that he continues to try to do today with respect to the U.S. military? All we're saying is that we need to have a conversation in good faith that's authentic, sitting down with legislative leaders on the other side of the aisle in the White House to both fund the government in a way that meets the needs of the American people, but at the same time doesn't continue this effort by Republicans to gut the health care of everyday Americans, particularly given the fact that the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which benefit millions of working class Americans, are about to expire, and Republicans have shown no interest in dealing with that critically important issue.
Are you worried that a shutdown could supercharge Trump's efforts to gut the federal government even further? And then, on top of that, stack the federal government with Trump's people to pursue whatever partisan agenda that they might have. I mean, is there a risk that this could all backfire?
Now, Donald Trump has been gutting the federal government since January 20th in ways that are only going to be restrained by the courts. And there's nothing that he can do in this particular instance that would be consistent with the law. And he will be held back by the courts at the appropriate time if he takes this aggressive action, which violates the law. But more importantly, public sentiment is going to what ultimately leads the Republicans to get back to the negotiating table. We saw that during the shutdown in 2013, 14-day government shutdown, and eventually the Republicans concluded that public sentiment was not with them, and they engaged in an unconditional surrender. And during the shutdown in 2018 into 2019, when Donald Trump was the president, and it began in the same way. Republicans controlled the House and the Senate. It lasted for 35 days. And at the end of that process, longest government shutdown in American history, the Republicans realized they couldn't sustain their position any longer. They engaged in an unconditional surrender, and the government was opened back up. Hopefully, this time around, it will only be a matter of hours or days.
The difference, though, Leader Jeffries, between those incidents and this one is that Democrats in those times were the ones saying, let's just fund the government. Let's not negotiate in this moment. Now the shoe is on the other foot. You acknowledge that, right?
No, actually, we're saying let's fund the government. Let's sit down and have a conversation. Republicans have adopted a my way or the highway approach. They basically have said, take it or leave it with respect to our partisan Republican spending bill that continues cuts that were first put into place in March of this year that hurt veterans, hurt children and families, hurt child care, hurt housing affordability, and hurt the health care of the American people. And they're suggesting now that continuing that funding level is something that we should just accept and allow it to be jammed down the throats of the American people when we voted against it in March because it hurt the American people.
Let's talk about, though, who you're negotiating with, because I think this is super important. I mean, you want to get to the table with the Republicans and perhaps the president, but I'm sure you may have seen this. I mean, President Trump just moments ago posted pictures from your meeting in the Oval Office where he, I guess, apparently tried to hand you Trump 2028 hats. Then he posted another video, an AI video of you in a sombrero once again. This time he's in the background. You see it, the audience can see it there, as a mariachi band. I mean, I think the question I have for you is, do you think that this is even a White House, a president that cares to negotiate in good faith at all? Because it sounds like this meeting that you had this week has only resulted in trolling and not in any serious conversations.
Well, that's exactly the point. He's an unserious individual. The Republicans are unserious at this point. They have no interest in having a good faith conversation. And all of the behavior, erratic, unhinged behavior that we've seen subsequent to that White House meeting should suggest to the American people who actually is trying to drive us toward a government shutdown. We continue to say we're willing to have a bipartisan discussion to arrive at a spending agreement that meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, public safety, and economic well-being, particularly as it relates to driving down the high cost of living, not allowing millions of Americans to experience dramatically increased healthcare premiums, copays, and deductibles. That's a reasonable position in defense of the quality of life of the American people. We just don't have serious negotiating partners right now on the other side of the aisle because they're engaging in